This presentation will introduce governance, its importance, its main elements, as well as new orientations influencing good governance. The contents will cover governance, stakeholders, and TBET with new considerations and models. Numerous definitions can be put forward when talking about governance. Wikipedia sees governance as being the process of making and enforcing decisions within an organization or society, process of interactions, global laws, social norms, power, or language. A more general definition is given by Cambridge Dictionary, seeing governance as the way that organizations or countries are managed at the highest level and systems for doing this. UNESCO sees the governance as a combination of structures and processes that are designed to ensure accountability, transparency, responsiveness, rule of law, stability, equity, and inclusiveness, empowerment, broad-based participation, in a manner that is transparent, participatory, inclusive, and responsive. Governance and management are connected. Nevertheless, it's the role of governance to set norms, strategic vision, and formulate high-level goals and policies, while management runs the organization in line with the broad goals, implements the decisions. The governance oversees management to ensure that it's working in the best interest of the public. The management can still make operational decisions and policies, and it has to be always responsive to any additional information that is required. In some governments, it's about directing and overseeing the management to ensure that the organization is achieving the desired income. The fundamental purpose of governance is to take into consideration the best interest of all stakeholders. When it comes to TVET, we can have three levels of stakeholders that can be considered. At the macro level, ministries and statutory bodies are in fact responsible for governance as defined previously. They set objectives, mission, and strategies, and oversee managerial decisions and performance. In fact, micro levels and stakeholders can be any number of bodies with a mandate for collective action and TBAC. At the meso level, we can find business organizations, trade unions, and others who can play a role of advocacy by providing recommendation and support. At the macro level, stakeholders such as TFAT institutions tend to be more directly responsible for implementation, for effective implementation. Their success depends on a commitment from macro stakeholders to providing a suitable environment. In other words, commitment from macro stakeholders to supporting the effective implementation of actions, taking into consideration new qualifications and competencies will ensure the relevance and durability in the long term. In sum, all stakeholders at different levels need to contribute to continuously maintain a responsive and agile TVET system to keep it relevant for the economy and to make people capable and resilient to tackle current and future challenges in the working and private lives. Good governance is participatory, consensus-oriented, accountable, transparent, responsive, effective and efficient, equitable and inclusive. It has to abide to the rule of law and it has to demonstrate a strategic vision. First of all, good governance is at its heart participatory. It encourages participation from members across a variety of backgrounds and encompassing varying areas of expertise. Good governance is also consensus-oriented. A passionate, participatory, informed debate can lead to the most insightful solutions as members work together to find common ground among various points of view. Accountability is also a key factor. Accountability to anyone affected by the governing board's decisions. This includes all stakeholders. Good governance also means that an organization is transparent about its processes and ensures its records are available to stakeholders, like, for example, contracts and policies. Responsiveness means remaining on the toes, handling matters that may arise promptly and effectively to avoid crisis. Directors should aim to be the model of effective practice and efficiency. Equity and inclusiveness are inherently tied to participation. Each member should feel capable of sharing their experiences, opinions, and philosophies. Rule of law means that boards should conduct themselves in an ethical and equitable manner and follow all applicable laws. Strategic vision is perhaps the most motivating of all aspects of good governance. It supposes planning, defining mission and values, and fostering a conducive environment to achieve goals. In order to tackle the subject of governance in Tibet, it is important to start by understanding the specific aspects and characteristics of Tibet. Tibet is traditionally seen as a sector of academic education, but in reality, it is different. One main difference is that standards and needs are set by employers. It's aimed at employment rather than promotion to a next grade, like in academic education. TVET is also a diverse sector. It comprises formal, informal, and non-formal learning. It takes place across a wide range of settings, including schools, public and private vocational centers and institutes, and workplaces. Monitoring and evaluating TVET performance and identifying the possibilities for improving its quality and coverage requires an understanding of the nature of Tibet, its functions, goals, and key characteristics. Tibet plays a key role in any society when it comes to providing qualified labor for the economy and transitioning young people from learning to earning. Tibet is arguably the education sector closest to the labor market. According to UNESCO, the aim of Tibet is to empower individuals and promote employment, inclusive and sustainable economic growth, social equity, and environmental sustainability. Normally, TVET institutions provide training through one or more of these typologies. Institution-based training that can be provided under or outside the formal educational system, work-based training either delivered before the employment or when in service, or even a combination of typologies such as the dual system. According to UNESCO, in most low and middle income countries, TVET systems remain highly fragmented and delivered by multiple entities, different ministries, NGOs, and the private sector, all having roles, rights, obligations, and accountabilities. Then coherent governance and regulatory frameworks are a must. Today, needed skills for an efficient preparation for future employment are wider in nature and in scope. Job-specific skills are still very important, but competencies and qualifications are in perpetual change, and TVET needs to cope with such change. But also, there are other skills that are vital. For example, students must be given foundation skills that include core subjects such as math, science, language, among others. Also, transversal skills, mainly entrepreneurial skills, life skills, citizenship, and human rights. Sustainability and green orientation are now a real trends in today's world, and they need to be considered. And last, but certainly not least, digital skills that are key to survival under new technology and information revolution. The digital transformation of the world of work has many dimensions. each with their own implications for Tibet governance. Progress made in robotics, for example, as well as the increasing spread of the Internet of Things, can no more be neglected. The automation of process, for example, should be considered, as well as another example, digital platforms to connect employees with employers. One fundamental challenge is the speed of technological change, which is in contrast with governance institutions that are often too slow to respond. The challenge of Tibet governance now lies, on one hand, in defining training occupations and needs such that they meet the rapidly changing requirements of companies and of young people wanting to acquire the skills. But on the other hand, Tibet policy should not take a merely reactive approach, but rather a proactive one by estimating future needs and installing a suitable training policy. This way, governance approaches of a more prospective nature can improve the governance of the entire education system. Besides, short-term needs and long-term objectives should be balanced. Some decentralized form of governance could have an advantage over slow centralistic approaches. Also, cooperation between private and public sectors need to be rethought and redefined. In light of what was discussed, new governance models for Tibet should first consider decentralization. Decentralization is becoming increasingly popular among the Tibet institutions internationally. As a result, many countries are establishing and strengthening governance models for Tibet institutions involving local stakeholders and cooperating with business associations, especially in supporting work-based trainings. We can find many examples that are available from different countries, such as these examples provided by UNESCO in a study conducted on its member states. More examples even include some countries from the Arab world, such as Bahrain and Palestine, and other countries from around the world that have introduced governance models that rely on decentralization and involvement of different stakeholders. Now, let us have a quick look on some work-based learning models as they contribute, they constitute an important part of Tibet governance. Work-based learning can be, for example, done through apprenticeships, traineeships, and internships. And we can find examples in many countries such as Costa Rica, Cyprus, Slovenia, Palestine, Uruguay, and others. Another model is dual system that is applied mainly in Armenia, Austria, Belgium, Romania, Spain, Tunisia, and other different countries. On-the-job training is also another kind of work-based training that is mainly adopted in Ireland and in Japan. The question is now, what is the best governance model for Tibet and Lebanon? Answering this question requires an extensive study of the environment with all its components. It's obvious that governance structures is largely dependent on institutional arrangements and on the respective roles of key stakeholders. The structure in Lebanon is still rigid, and reforms need to be done. Nevertheless, actions are being undertaken. In 2018, the Tibet National Strategic Framework was launched with the aim of increasing youth employment and boosting the labor market. Although since 2019, the situation has been difficult and very difficult, nevertheless, there are school advisory boards that are being gradually included in Tibet establishment and that can lead to better governance, more cooperation between private and public sectors, a smaller gap between trainings and labor market needs, and better employability. Finally, the future of Tibet governance can be brighter. Only hard work and appropriate planning can lead to success.